Today is the 19th day of the month of Teves. We are in the middle of chapter 44, discussing the laws of Birchat HaMazon, the after blessing, when you have a meal which includes bread. Today we'll be doing paragraph 5 through paragraph 13. Paragraph 5. What's the minimum amount that one has to eat in order to have to say the after blessing on bread, to say Birchat HaMazon? If somebody has a mere crumb of bread, do they have to say Birchat HaMazon? So the answer is they have to have a minimum of a Kezayis, an olive size worth, which is approximately the volume of 1 fluid ounce. Paragraph 6. In what position should one be when they're reciting Birchat HaMazon, when they're reciting the after blessing of bread? So one should be sitting down. We should not be standing, not walking around. Even if somebody was standing or walking around during the meal, when it comes time to say this blessing, you should make sure to sit down. But you got to make sure that you're not reclining, you're not leaning back in your chair. You're speaking to God, so you have to be sitting down so you can be focused, but facing, sitting appropriately, not reclining, not leaning back. You're speaking to God, you got to be sitting up straight. Paragraph 7. If you hear somebody else reciting Birchat HaMazon, reciting the after blessing, then whenever they finish off a blessing, not every paragraph has a blessing at the end of it, but a number of them do. Whenever they say the end of a blessing, the end of a paragraph which has a blessing, Baruch Hashem, blessed are you God, then at the end of that sentence, make sure that you say Amen after they say the blessing. The Shulchan brings down a custom to say Amen after all the HaRachamans. Towards the end of the Birchat HaMazon, there's a bunch of lines which start out HaRachaman, asking God, the compassionate one, please give us livelihood, please bless this house, the table that we ate at, etc. So there does seem to be a custom to say Amen after each of those lines. I have not seen that. I definitely don't think it's a standard custom to do so. If you want to, it's fine, but don't worry about trying to make sure that you do. Paragraph 8. How soon after you finish eating do you have to recite Birchat HaMazon? So it's supposed to be done within 72 minutes. If you waited longer than 72 minutes, then if you had a full meal and now 72 minutes passed since you finished eating, it's too late to say Birchat HaMazon. You can't bench anymore. If you're still hungry, if you had not eaten a full meal and you're still in the middle of the meal, then you could really eat a little bit, at least a Kezayis, that olive size worth volume of bread, approximately 1 ounce, and then you could do Birchat HaMazon afterwards, but really should not have waited 72 minutes without eating anything. We should be benching, we should be saying Birchat HaMazon within 72 minutes after we finish eating. Paragraph 9. We had learned previously that in the middle of a meal, before benching, before saying Birchat HaMazon, one should not leave the building which he's eating. Let's say somebody does. They go outside, they go to a new location. So what do they do then? So we have 3 options. Option A is eat a little bit of bread where you are now, at least again that Kezayis size, the olive size, a volume of approximately 1 fluid ounce, and then you could say Birchat HaMazon where you are. Option B is, let's say you don't have any bread where you are, then you have to go back to where you were and you say Birchat HaMazon over there. Option C, you ate a meal in place A, and you then hit the road, you're going on a trip, and let's say you're already on a trip 45 minutes, an hour away from where you had eaten the meal, and you have no bread with you to have some bread now to say Birchat HaMazon over here. So in that case, if you would go back to where you ate the meal, by that time 72 minutes will have passed, and we already saw in the last paragraph that if 72 minutes pass, you lose your chance to bench, you lose your chance to say Birchat HaMazon. So in that case, you just say it where you are. Paragraph 10. On Shabbos, there's an additional paragraph that we add into Birchat HaMazon called Yotzei, talking about this mitzvah of Shabbos. On holidays, we add in a paragraph called Yalav Yavo. We also add in this paragraph of Yalav Yavo on the first day of the Jewish month. And now let's say it's Shabbos and it's the day when you have to say Yalav Yavo, either a holiday or the first day of Jewish month. Which one do you say first? So we have a general rule. It's not 100%, but it's a general rule within halakha, within Jewish law, that if you have 2 things you have to do, and one is more common than the other one, you always do the more common one first, and then you do the less common one. So over here, since Shabbos is more common than holidays, you recite Yotzei, and afterwards you recite Yalav Yavo. Paragraph 11. Let's say somebody is not sure whether they benched or not. They had a nice big meal. They then got caught up in conversation, and after around half an hour, they sit and schmooze at the table. They say, "Wait a second, did we bench? Did we say Birchat HaMazon?" So what do? They're not sure. They can't figure it out. Do they bench in case they missed it, or they say no, they might have already done it? You can't bench a second time. So here it gets a little bit complicated and technical. Before we get to the actual rule, we have to know a little bit more of the background. If one ate enough bread or enough of the meal to be fully satiated, then they have a biblical obligation to bench to say Birchas Hamazon. It's a mitzvah from the Torah. One of the 613 mitzvahs we have from the Torah is to bench if you are fully satiated. If somebody is not satiated, but they had a Kezayis worth of olives worth of bread, that approximately one fluid ounce worth of bread, then in that case, they have a rabbinical mitzvah to bench. It's not biblical, it's only rabbinical. It only hits a biblical level when you're fully satiated. Now we have a rule that a blessing which is rabbinical, if you're in doubt whether you said it or not, you don't say it. A blessing which is biblical, if you're in doubt whether you said it or not, then you do say it. So over here, if you are fully satiated, then your obligation to say Birchas Hamazon is biblical, and then if you're in doubt whether you said it or not, you have to make sure to say it. You have to say it again. However, if you're not fully satiated, if you had a Kezayis, the olives worth amount, but you didn't get to the satiation level, now your obligation to bench to say Birchas Hamazon is only rabbinical. If it's rabbinical, then in the case of doubt, you don't say it. And therefore you would not say Birchas Hamazon if you're in case of doubt, if all you had was an olive worth, and you did not get to the level of being satiated by the amount that you ate. The same would apply if you dozed off in the middle of benching and you're not sure where you got up to. So if you are fully satiated, you have to start from the beginning or start from the earliest point where you know you might have missed. If you were fully satiated. If you are not fully satiated, then it only is rabbinical again, and then you don't need to say anything more because the chance that you did finish the whole benching. If you know you certainly skipped some paragraphs, you can say those paragraphs that for sure you skipped, that for sure you missed, but the paragraphs you're not sure about, those you don't repeat, you don't say at all. Now, this is all true for a man. For ladies, however, there's disagreement amongst the halachic authorities whether ladies have to bench. They have a mitzvah to bench, but there's disagreement whether they have to bench on a biblical level or a rabbinical level. And therefore, if a lady is not sure whether she benched or not, or a lady falls asleep in the middle of benching, then she does not say anything at all. She just says the things that she's sure she didn't say, but anything she's not sure about, she does not say. Because for her, there's a chance it's all rabbinical. Paragraph 12 through 15 discuss what do you do if you missed Ya'al V'Yavo on a holiday or Rosh Chodesh, or if you missed the Tzei paragraph on Shabbos. Do you have to repeat benching? Do you not have to repeat benching? And it gets very technical. So we're not going to go through the details of these paragraphs. I'm going to refer you to page 189 in the Article Siddur. On the bottom over there, they have a paragraph. They have a box on the bottom over there explaining what to do if you skipped it. How do you make it up? Do you have to make it up, etc.? I'm just going to give you a basic rule, and then for the details, look on page 189 in the Article Siddur. My reason is that this gets so technical. I don't and how often we say once a week, but how often to say Ya'al V'Yavo, to expect it to remember what to do in that moment is not realistic. So therefore, just look on page 189, the Article Siddur, if it does happen to you. But here's the basic rule of thumb to know. If this meal that you're eating is a required meal to have, there's an obligation to have this meal, then you have to go back and repeat the benching if you missed that addition that's supposed to be had. So for example, on Shabbos, there's a requirement to have at least 2 meals. There's a mitzvah to have 3 meals, but an obligation to have at least 2. So if one of those first 2 meals you missed Tzei, that paragraph that you had in for Shabbos, then you have to go back and repeat benching. The third meal on Shabbos, Shal Shudis or Suda Shlishis, that third meal is a mitzvah to have, but it's not an obligation. And therefore, if during the third meal you forgot Tzei, you do not have to repeat benching. On holidays, similar. On holidays, is an obligation to have 2 meals. So if you missed Ya'al V'Yavo during either of those 2 meals, then you have to go back and you have to repeat benching with Ya'al V'Yavo. On Rosh Chodesh, on the first day of Jewish months, then you're supposed to add Ya'al V'Yavo, but there's no obligation to have a meal. And therefore, if you miss Ya'al V'Yavo, that paragraph that we added in for Rosh Chodesh for the first day of the Jewish month, if you forget to say that paragraph, you do not have to repeat benching. Now again, how do you repeat it? Do you go back to the beginning? Do you say a different blessing instead? That gets very technical, and look in the Article Siddur on page 189 if this happens to you. This concludes today's episode. Have a wonderful day and see you tomorrow.